Hi there! Today I'm going to talk to you and teach you a little bit about the superficial front line. So first of all, to start, I'll tell you what the superficial front line is. It runs from the tips of our toes up the dorsal top part of the foot, around the outer side of the shin bone, the top of the quadricep muscle, and then connects at the outer bowl of the hip. From there, it then goes to cover the top layer of the abdominal muscles, or the six-pack muscle, connects on the inner side of the rib cage, comes around the outside of the neck, and then connects at the base of the back of the ears. So I've designed a series that will help strengthen and release this area. It consists primarily of back bending, so as you watch this video, listen to your body, hold for as long as your body thinks that it should hold for. And I've also included the warm-up and cool-down part of back bending. So to start, we're going to start in what we call creeper pose. So taking the feet together and walking them in towards your seat as close as you can. Taking your arms around the outsides of the knees. So the knees should be resting just on the inside of the crook of the elbow. And thinking of the knees pushing out into the elbows just as much as the arms are drawing those knees together. And we're going to make a fist with the left hand, grabbing onto that fist with the right hand. And thinking about sitting up nice and tall, sucking the belly in, so lowest part of belly to lowest part of back, front ribs to back ribs. Thinking of a corset, pulling the ribs together. And then thinking of the external rotation in the shoulders, shoulders working away from the ears and down the back. And then thinking about leaning back slightly. So thinking of if you had a wall behind you that your back would be straight. The ears should be just over the shoulders. And we're going to close our eyes and breathe here. We want to also think about taking that T6 bra line area and pulling it through the shoulders. So finding a nice, even breath. And swapping the hands, so making a fist with the right hand, grabbing onto the right fist with the left hand, closing your eyes and continuing with that breath. Straightening up in any areas that you may have collapsed in. Thinking about a clothes hanger coming inside your armpit and pulling the inner part of the armpit out. And then releasing that. So coming with our legs straight, we're going to take our hands a nice generous hands distance behind us. You want your wrists to be a shoulders distance apart and stacked below your shoulders. Elbows are going to bend slightly over the wrists. Thinking about that front rib cage coming to the back rib cage. Finding nice active legs and your Barbie feet. Thinking of lowest part of belly to lowest part of back and your corset in your rib cage. We're going to lift that right leg and do some circles with that right leg. Doing 3 circles in one direction and then switching directions and doing 3 circles in that direction. And then switching to the other leg. We're going to do 3 circles in each direction on each leg 3 times. Keeping the leg that has its heel on the floor as still as possible. And our last set. And when those 3 sets of 3 are complete, pushing into the hands to open up the chest, finding a nice straight back, external rotation in the shoulders, and breathing into that open chest. This is opening up the superficial front line in the area within the rib cage. Still thinking of lowest part of belly to lowest part of back, and of course that connection in your rib cage. And then slightly bending the elbows. We're going to come into fish pose. So fish pose is, we're going to take our elbows directly below our shoulders, palms pushing into the floor, palms facing down, finding nice active feet, thinking of the external rotation in the shoulders, front ribs to back ribs, and we're going to just lift the chest and let the head go back. Palms pushing into the floor, shoulders still working away from the ears, and breathing. Getting that nice opening through the superficial front line. And then pushing into your elbows to bring the gaze and the chin forward. If you want to take it a little deeper, you can walk the elbows more towards your seat. I like to grab onto the butt just to help secure the arms down, help give you something to hang on to. And then again, finding the lift in the chest and letting the head go back. Remembering that this is taking it deeper and holding for as long as your body tells you it's okay. And pushing into the floor to bring the gaze and the chin back up. And then coming down onto your back. I'm going to scoot down. Taking a mini Shavasana, so letting the feet be loose, opening the arms out, flipping the palms towards the ceiling, fixing your gaze on one point on the ceiling, and just taking a few nice even breaths. And bending your knees, walking your feet towards your seat, trying to get your ankles and your heels as close to your seat as you can. Trying to have the knees, ankles, and sit bones in a nice straight line. Arms pushing into the floor. External rotation in the shoulders. Palms pushing into the floor. And we're going to take a little bridge here. So arms pushing into the floor, shoulders pushing into the floor, feet pushing into the floor. And then gently, one disc, one vertebra at a time, coming up into little bridge. Thinking about a block between your thighs that you're squeezing. Lowest part of belly to lowest part of back. Finding your rib cage connection. And breathing here. Thinking of the hip creases reaching up towards the ceiling. Finding nice steady breath. If you want to take it a little deeper, the option is there to interlace the fingers behind the back and then walk the shoulders under and down towards your feet. Pushing the arms and the shoulders into the floor. Maybe the hips can sink up a little bit more towards the ceiling, and then returning to that even breath. And if you've interlaced, releasing the interlacing, bringing the palms of the hands back onto the floor, shoulders pushing into the floor, hands and feet pushing into the floor, and then slowly coming down one disc, one vertebra at a time. Once the full back touches, flipping the palms up towards the ceiling, straightening the legs, and taking a mini Shavasana again. Slowing down your breath to slow down your heart rate. gaze again. We're going to take the feet about a hip's distance apart, taking your arms beside the body, palms pushing into the floor again, shoulders finding that nice external rotation, keeping the feet nice and active. Then we're going to just let the knees fall over to the right side, and then inhaling them back up and taking them over to the left. Feet are active the whole time, following your own breath. Releasing the hips, the hip flexors, the quads, the shins, basically everything in the lower portion of the superficial front line. Doing one more on each side. And then when those are complete, we're going to roll off to the right side and come up into tabletop position. So coming into tabletop position, wrists below shoulders, knees below hips, feet are tucked, knees are a hip's distance apart, and wrists are a shoulder's distance apart. Finding your nice straight spine to start, gaze is down at the floor, lowest part of belly to lowest part of back, finding your rib cage connection. And we're going to start to open the spine by doing some cat-cow curls. So as you inhale, the butt goes back, the shoulders go back, and the gaze goes up. And as you exhale, the back curls like an angry kitty. Going back and forth, following your own breath. So this series of poses here, the cat-cow curls, shows the balance between the superficial front line and the superficial back line. It shows the reciprocal motion between the two. So as one part stretches, the other part contracts. The two fascial lines go hand in hand. So coming to a straight spine, we're going to untuck our toes, and we're going to come down, chin, and then chest onto our bellies. I'm going to scoot myself back just a little bit. We're going to take our elbows below our shoulders, palms pushing into the floor. You want to think of a 90-degree angle between the forearm and the bottom of the arm, thinking of nice active legs, lengthening each leg back, pubic bone and hip bones pushing into the floor, palms pushing into the floor, finding lowest part of belly to lowest part of back, front ribs to back ribs, and then just finding that external rotation in the shoulders. And just taking a few breaths here. And then taking your hands below your shoulders and coming all the way down. Bringing your forehead on the floor, lengthening the legs back one more time. We're going to take our hands below our shoulders, full circumference of the palms pushing into the floor, thinking about the elbows squeezing the rib cage, and then pushing into the hands and the feet. Again, pubic bone and hip bone pushing into the floor, lowest part of the belly to lowest part of back. And we're going to come up slowly into cobra. Elbows are bent the whole time, neck is nice and long, gaze is forward. And then lowering down, very slowly. Taking your hands beside the body, toes pointing out, heels pointing in, coming down with your gaze over the left shoulder, closing your eyes and taking a few deep breaths. Bringing your hands underneath your shoulders, bringing your feet back to center, lengthening one leg back, lengthening the other leg back, bringing your forehead back onto the floor, and extending the arms straight out in front of you, lengthening the arms out of the body and lengthening the legs out of the body. Finding the pubic bone and hip bone, pushing into the floor, forehead pushing into the floor. And on your next inhale, we're going to lift the right arm and the left leg. Breathing the whole time. And lowering down. And then on your next inhale, inhaling up the left arm, right leg. Both extremities pulling out of the body. And then lowering down. Taking a deep breath. And then on your next inhale, inhaling up both arms, both legs, and the gaze. Pubic bone and hip bone still pushing into the floor. Arms and legs pulling out of the body. And then lowering everything down. Sweeping the arms beside the body, palms facing the ceiling. Taking your gaze over the right shoulder. And this time, toes pointing in, heels pointing out. And bringing everything back to center. This time, taking your arms out wide. So wrist in line with shoulders. Feet are still out behind us. This time we're thinking of a zipper between the legs, zipping the legs together. Feet are still nice and active, lengthening the legs back. Pubic bone and hip bone pushing into the floor. Forehead pushing into the floor. And on your next inhale, lifting just the arms and the gaze. And lowering down. And lifting just the legs. And lowering down. Taking a deep breath. And then lifting the arms, the legs, and the gaze. And lowering everything down. Sweeping the arms beside the body, taking the gaze over the left shoulder, toes pointing out, heels pointing in. Closing your eyes and finding your nice deep breaths. And bringing the hands underneath the shoulders, bringing the feet back to center, pushing into your hands to push yourself up through tabletop position, walking the knees back forward, and then coming back to sit on your feet, rolling over your heels, coming to sit on your butt, finding nice active feet, finding a nice active Dandasana, so palms pushing into the floor, shoulders working back and away from the ears. We're going to inhale the arms up, overhead, palms facing each other, then flipping the palms towards your feet, and then bending, hinging at the hips, thinking about the sacrum pushing back into an imaginary wall and coming down with a straight spine. Arms are with your ears, and then releasing the arms when you can't keep a straight back anymore, wherever that may be. It might be here, it might be here, it might be here. You might be able to grab your feet, lengthening the spine. Thinking about a block between your thighs that you're squeezing. Thinking about your brow line coming through the shoulders. And then releasing your grip. Arms come back with the ears. And coming up. Flipping your palms to face each other and then bringing them all the way down beside the body. Coming back into Dandasana. then releasing. So we're going to come into Virasana. So this pose is really important for the superficial front line, but very important to not feel your knees at any part of this pose. So coming into it, we're going to do Supta Virasana, which is reclined Virasana. So taking your feet just wider than your hip bones, taking your calves and rolling them out as you come down. I'm going to walk forward just a little bit. Tops of the feet pushing into the floor. Taking the time to spread your toes. Making sure you have enough space between your feet and your hip bones to slide your hands through. Maybe grabbing onto your knees and moving the flesh of the knees. Thinking about kicking the tops of the feet into the mat. This will help activate the quads and the outer part of the shins. And then slowly coming back, getting off the bus anywhere you need to get off. Front ribs to back ribs, the lowest part of belly to lowest part of back. Maybe you can come down onto your elbows. Maybe you can come all the way down. So to come out of this, pushing your elbows into the floor to take the weight into the elbows and then walking the elbows back, eventually coming onto your hands, pushing yourself up, and then bringing your hands beside your feet, pushing into your hands, and then walking the hands forward, coming back into tabletop position, extending one leg behind you, pushing into the toes and pushing into the heels to open up the back of the knee. And then switching sides, extending the left leg behind you, pushing into the left toes and through the left heel to open up the back of that left knee. And dropping down onto that knee. Coming back to roll over your feet and come back onto your seat, extending the legs out in front of you. Now we're going to start releasing all that back bending. So letting the legs be loose, letting the feet be passive, bringing the forearms onto the thighs, curling the spine, letting the head be heavy, shoulders still working away from the ears, but letting the whole spine curve, closing your eyes and breathing deeply into that back body. Slowly curling the spine back up, head coming last. Finding Dandasana. And then we're going to bend the knees. We're going to take the left ankle underneath the right knee, and then take the right ankle in the arch of the left foot. Both knees working towards the floor. Both knees should be about level. And then taking the left hand behind you, you want it to be a generous distance behind you and around the center of the sacrum. And we're going to take our right hand outside that left knee and finding our front ribs to our back ribs, and then turning the gaze over that left shoulder. So this is a reclined twist. Thinking about pulling the shoulders apart and opening up that chest. the feet kicking into the floor. And then bringing the gaze back to center, taking your right hand behind the body to help take some of the weight, and then grabbing onto the right knee to support it as you bring it forward, and then grabbing onto the left knee and switching sides. So we're going to take our right ankle under the left knee, and then take the left ankle inside the arch of that right foot. Both knees are about a hip's distance apart and working towards the floor. Taking our right hand behind us, a generous distance behind, around the center of the sacrum, finding front ribs to back ribs. And then taking the left hand on the outside of that right knee, thighs working away from the body, knees working towards the floor, and turning the gaze over that right shoulder. Again, shoulders are pulling apart, finding the external rotation in both shoulders, front ribs to back ribs, and then finding your breath. And then bringing the gaze to center, taking the left hand behind you to help take some of the weight, coming back up to center, helping support the left knee as you bring it back to front, and then the right knee, bringing the feet together, taking your hands behind the backs of your knees, curling the spine, and coming down onto your back, one disc, one vertebra at a time. Once the back touches, taking the arms out nice and wide, extending the legs out in front of you, letting the feet be heavy, closing your eyes and taking your Shavasana. I hope you all enjoyed exploring the superficial front line with me. Join me next time. Namaste.